if an 86-year-old white-haired old man told you he was a wanted fugitive? Would you call the police, or would you listen to his story first? Don't worry, I never hurt anyone. I simply took my life back. Last month, I escaped from a nursing home that looked peaceful on the surface, but felt more like a morgue inside. The most ironic part was that the doors were never locked, yet not a single one of the hundreds of elderly residents dared to leave. What held them there wasn't chains or bars, but a piece of paper handed over by their families, a psychiatric evaluation report. My own son used one of those reports to push me into the abyss, and while he was at it, he sold the watch shop I had spent most of my life building. He thought that at 86, I was nothing more than a rusty old gear. He was wrong. Today, I'm going to tear open the truth about that place and show it to you. Before they sent me there, I was a master watchmaker who had spent a lifetime working with time itself. I could repair the most complicated mechanisms with precision, and I could hear the faintest irregularity in a machine. The tragedy is that I could hear the flaws in a watch, but I failed to hear the greed in my own son David's voice. David was 52 years old and drowning in gambling debts. 2 years ago, he sat down at my workbench and handed me a document. Across the top were the cold words, "Severe cognitive impairment. Institutional care recommended." He couldn't even look me in the eye, because behind that report was a signed agreement to sell my home. Before I continue, I want to thank this channel for giving people like us a voice. Don't forget to subscribe, it's completely free. And if this story speaks to you, please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. The little building that held 40 years of memories with my late wife, along with the watch shop attached to it, was sold off at a bargain price as if it were scrap metal. And I, like a pile of unwanted junk, was shipped off to a nursing home on the outskirts of town. Under the harsh white fluorescent lights, I felt neither alive nor dead. Inside that room, the world that had run with perfect precision for my entire life was forced into a standstill. Even the clock hanging beside my bed wasn't a mechanical timepiece with a comforting tick-tock. It was a glaring digital clock, cold and silent, flashing numbers as if it were counting down the last moments of my life. Some of the caregivers were kind. Jenny, the woman who handed out medication, was one of them. But that kindness was somehow the most depressing part. It was like receiving a beautifully wrapped gift that contained no love at all. In the silence of the hallway, I often watched Frank in the bed next to mine. He had once been an Air Force instructor. He would absent-mindedly mimic the motions of flying a fighter jet and whisper to me, "I can't remember how to land." That was the moment I understood the truth. This place wasn't a refuge. It was a giant storage box. When society decides you no longer produce anything of value, they neatly stack you away and let you slowly rot. To keep myself from losing my mind, I scratched a mark beside my bed every day, reminding myself that the mainspring in my chest was still turning. But that mainspring almost shattered completely. On the 90th day, David called me. In a cold voice, he informed me that my watch shop had been rented out to someone opening a convenience store. In that moment, everything my wife and I had spent our lives protecting was thrown away like garbage. The pain was so immense that it brought me an unexpected calm. I began using my watchmaker's instincts. I studied the nursing home as if it were a giant clock, calculating every shift change like the engagement of gears inside a movement. Eventually, I discovered a gap.
Every morning,
There was a 3.5-minute window when no one was paying attention. On the 120th day, before dawn, I put on my coat and slipped a photograph of my late wife into my pocket. The moment the shift change bell rang, I calmly walked out the front door. I didn't run, because an old man who walks with confidence rarely attracts suspicion. That was how I restarted the mainspring of my life. After leaving, I felt like a watch component that had fallen out of its case, a loose piece of machinery searching for a place to function again. Then one day, I found a room for rent note at the library. The woman who answered the phone was Clara, a 28-year-old single mother. When she heard I was 86, there was a long silence on the line. She told me she had a 5-year-old daughter named Lily who could be a little noisy. I laughed and said, "I've spent half my life listening to ticking clocks. Noise doesn't bother me." The truth was that Clara had recently gone through a divorce. Her ex-husband had taken all their savings. Her small plant shop was on the verge of collapse, and she was struggling to pay the rent. My pension happened to be enough to help her stay afloat. A forgotten old watchmaker and a desperate young mother ended up piecing together two broken families inside a tiny attic apartment. With the little warmth we had left, we kept each other warm. Living with Clara gave my rusty old life a fresh winding. I set up a small table outside her plant shop and began repairing watches for people in town. Every day, 5-year-old Lily sat beside me and proudly told her teachers, "Grandpa Arthur can make time go backward." The neighbors talked. Some even accused Clara of taking advantage of a helpless old man. With tears in her eyes, Clara stood in front of me and said, "He's not a tenant, he's family. He helps me pick up my daughter from school. With those hands that repair watches, he rebuilt the collapsed seedling racks in my greenhouse and fixed my irrigation system." And she was right. At 86 years old, I am still a watchmaker capable of making gears turn again. My hands are still steady when I hold a pair of tweezers. I am not a broken man who needs to be managed. Last week, David finally found my phone number. When I answered, I felt nothing. He demanded to know why I had left the nursing home without permission. Calmly, I replied, "David, I'm having dinner with my daughter and granddaughter." On the other end of the line came an explosion of angry shouting. I simply said, "Lily is waiting for her bedtime story. I have to go." Then I looked down at my hands, still as steady as ever, and hung up the phone. Growing old is not what's frightening. What's frightening is realizing that the people who share your blood may be standing by, watching coldly, waiting for the day you become nothing more than an asset to be liquidated. I was once abandoned in a cold nursing home and left there to wait for death. But now I have taken back control of the hands of the clock. My time belongs to me. If you believe that the dignity of older people should never be trampled upon, leave your story in the comments.